Hawks are back. The Bombs are back. The Blitz is back. The NFL is back on ESPN. Start your football Sundays with NFL Game Day and end the day with NFL Primetime.
Pay attention. Vision Cable Channel 9. They are the best. Look what I got. National Cable Ace. Vision Cable, winner of sports events coverage 2 years in a row. Children's programs. I love those guys. Best local promotion. Yours truly. 14 Cable Ace nominations, 3 Cable Ace awards, 2 Hometown USA awards, and me. Visit Cable Channel 9.
ESPN, top-ranked boxing. For the best game in town, there's only one place to be. ESPN, every Sunday night, live.
Vision Cable, we're looking our best for you.
Welcome to the Cable Act of 1992. I'm Brian Unks, Director of Public Affairs and Programming for Vision Cable. And with me is Jim Waldo, Vice President and General Manager of Vision Cable of Pinellas. If you've been following your newspapers and the national news, you already know there are a lot of changes coming in the way cable companies charge for their services. For some of you, this means a slight increase in your cable bill, and for others, a slight decrease. It also gives you some additional options in selecting the type of service you'd like to bring into your home. In the next half hour, we're going to talk about some of the questions we hear most often and try to clear up some of the confusion. Jim, let's start out with a description of what it is that the FCC mandated effective September the 1st.
Well, in the Cable Act of 1992, there was 550 plus pages of regulations, and one of the major components of the act is rate regulation, and that takes effect on September 1st of this year.
And you can see on the screen some of the components that were...
The FCC froze cable rates back in April until November 15th of this year. The FCC mandated that all cable companies had to calculate their rates that were allowed using a benchmark formula. Numerous forms, not unlike forms that you might use for filling out your taxes, and each system then determined what their benchmark rate was. We also are required to itemize the bills. We have to show on the bill, line by line, what makes up the bill. Rates that are regulated under the Cable Act of 1992 are broadcast basic service, cable TV service, equipment charges, and installation and repair charges.
Ken, you mentioned rate regulations. Are all of the rates for cable service regulated under these FCC rules?
No. The basic cable service rate is regulated. Cable service is regulated. And equipment charges are regulated, as are installation charges. What is not regulated are premium channel services such as HBO, Showtime. Pay-per-view channels are not regulated. Pay-per-view movies, events, digital cable radio, that sort of thing.
Okay, now there's been some talk about the rights of cities or counties to regulate rates. Is this coming up soon as well?
Yes, under the Cable Act of 1992, the cities and counties have the option of regulating cable systems. Subsequent September 1st of this year, if the county or the city wants to get into the regulation business, they would fill out a form and mail it to the FCC. And about 30 days from that point in time, they would be regulating only the basic service rates that would be regulated by the cities and counties. The cable service portion of the bill, which we'll be looking at later, is regulated by the Federal Communications Commission. So it's just the basic service that the counties and the cities would be allowed to regulate, as well as the installation charges and equipment charges.
Now, there was a lot of talk while this was going on, and even before it, that there was going to be a 10% decrease across the board for all subscribers, and yet this really didn't happen. Can you explain what happened here?
Well, what happened is the FCC and/or Congress kind of misfired on that. They put out information that cable bills were going to decline by 10%, and really they were targeting cable companies whose rates were above the national average. And in doing so, they hit all cable systems, like Vision Cable, whose rates have been the lowest in the Tampa Bay area, or are the lowest in the Tampa Bay area, and probably the lowest in the state of Florida. And it's unfortunate that happened, because the consumer now is expecting a 10% minimum decline on their bill come September 1st, and that's just simply not going to happen.
Of course, we as the cable operators were saying all along that that really wasn't going to be the case, and it came to fruition that it wasn't.
That's correct.
Now, there are people out there who have the lowest level of cable service at Vision Cable that are going to see a slight increase. Can you explain how that all came about?
Unfortunately, that is true, and the reason for that is we are allowed under the Cable Act to charge for equipment charges, which we've never done before, and we're also not allowed to charge for second outlets any longer after September 1st. So if you're a single outlet customer, excuse me, you would then be seeing an equipment charge on your bill for the first time. So that added to the existing bill is going to increase your rate. If you're a multiple outlet customer, where in the past you've paid an additional fee for each additional outlet that you had in your home, that fee will go away. And what will remain is an equipment charge for each piece of equipment that you require. But that equipment charge is considerably less than the second outlet charge or the third outlet charge, so your bill will drop. And that's pretty much how it works. So some of our subscribers will see a pretty significant decrease in their bill, and others will see either a nominal increase or somewhat significant, depending on the consumer.
Okay, now we've got a sample of what our subscribers will be getting in their bills in September. Let's talk a little bit about what they'll be seeing in their bill and try to make it a little easier for them to understand. Well,
there's a couple of bill inserts that will accompany the September bills, and the first one will talk to the Cable Act and what's changing September 1st, the fact that the rates are changing and so forth, and a little bit of history on what's going on with the bill. In addition, they will get a rate comparison chart, which will show what the rates were before September 1st and what the rates will be after September 1st.
And that's the next page that shows our new basic service and what that will cost, and let's explain a little bit about that.
Okay, the old rate for basic service was no charge. We had what we used to call broadcast basic service, and that included 20 channels of service. That has changed effective September 1st. That service will include 17 channels because we've removed the superstations from that basic tier of service. And we've also removed the cost associated with that from the charge, and we've put that into a superstation package, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
And that shows there now the
cable service. Okay, cable service, the old rate was $16.95. It now will be $10.81, but let me explain that. The two combined, you must buy basic service to get the cable service channels. So the two charges combined will go to $17.37. That's the 1081 and the 656 added together.
So when people see that, Jim, on their bill, they can't get the middle 28 channels for just 1081. You need to purchase your basic cable and the cable service, and the combined total must be 1737.
That's correct. That's one of the changes under the bill, is that now the only buy-through provision, if you wanted to buy a premium channel, is that you have to buy basic service. If you want to buy cable service, you have to buy basic service in order to get the full package.
Okay, and this is rather complicated. Does it need to really look this complicated? With so many things itemized, is that something that the FCC mandated in this latest regulation?
Under the Cable Act of 1992, we were instructed to itemize our cable bills and to show the consumer exactly what it is that they're paying for.
Okay. Now, since some of the bills are going up, people are wondering what the cable systems do with all that extra money, supposedly, but that's really not the case, right?
It's not the case, because we were allowed to adjust our rates as a result of not being able to charge for second outlets after September 1st. We were allowed to spread that over our entire customer base, and we were also allowed to make equipment charges. As long as we accomplished this by September 1st, and as long as we remained below the benchmark requirements of the Cable Act, and as long as we remained revenue neutral. That was the key item, remaining revenue neutral. In other words, we could not bring in any more revenue as a result of these rate changes than what we brought in before we made the changes. And we accomplished those 3 items.
So basically, we were forced by the regulations to restructure how we calculated all our billing.
That is correct.
Now, there has been a lot of talk about a freeze on cable rates. How do these changes in the charges tie in with that freeze?
Okay. Well, again, the cable freeze is in place until November 15th. It's our understanding that after that time it will be lifted. What cable systems will be allowed to do sometime in the future, that date is yet to be determined, is increase rates as long as they don't increase more than the Consumer Price Index. So if the Consumer Price Index is 4% for 1993, we would be allowed an increase up to that amount in 1994. In addition, we're allowed to pass through additional programming costs.
Okay. Now, normally cable subscribers are given a month's notice before bills increase. That wasn't the case here. Can you tell us what happened there?
That's true, and we feel bad about that, but because the FCC initially were going to make this rate change on June 21st, and then moved it to October 1st, and now back to September 1st, we just frankly did not have the time to go through all the calculations that are involved in the forms in the Cable Act and come up with the allowable rate per channel in time to give 30 days notice. So the FCC waived that notification, but in the meantime we're putting this information in the bills. We're talking to city officials, we're talking to newspapers, and we're trying to get this information out as quickly as we can.
Okay, what we're going to do right now is take a quick time out. We'll be back with more of our explanation show on the Cable Act of 1992 in a moment. Keep it right here.
It's light. It opens clogged breathing tubes, refreshes like no other, and you can enjoy it wherever you go. Just listen to what satisfied people are already saying about their lives.
I wouldn't trade mine for anything.
I wouldn't be soaked without mine.
Well, there you have it. So don't miss out, because life goes with everything.
Except drugs.
A message from a drug-free Navy and Marine Corps.
There's one place where you can find all the latest world news, plus sports, business updates, and entertainment reports every half hour. One place. An entire network devoted to all news whenever you want it, constantly updated, always available, every 30 minutes, 48 times a day. And you know it's the most up-to-date and accurate news because it comes from CNN. Headline news, a whole day's news, every half hour.
Welcome to our show about the Cable Act of 1992. Brian Unks back along with Jim Waldo, the Vice President and General Manager of Vision Cable. And Jim, many people think of cable systems as a monopoly, much like the phone companies or the electric companies, and that more competition is really needed. What are your views on this?
Well, I've heard that. My views are, first off, we operate under with a cable system franchise, a non-exclusive franchise. We are one component in the entertainment pie, and the consumer has X amount of dollars to spend on entertainment, and we're one slice of that pie. There's video stores, you can rent tapes, there's a movie theater, there's other types of, there's other mediums out there that provide some of the same channels that we provide in this particular area, so there are other choices and alternatives to Vision Cable.
You know, something new on the cable bill is a charge for converter boxes. Why has this been added?
Well, as part of the Cable Act of 1992, we were mandated to not charge for equipment charges any more than the formulas in the Act would allow. And, but that is one of the things that we were allowed to continue to charge for.
Okay, you can see what the bill will now look like, and if
yes.
you have a...
The reason for the somewhat odd-looking rates is because a battery of accountants and attorneys following the 550-plus pages in the regulation and all the calculations that had to be accomplished, accomplished that mission and came up with what the costs for a basic converter box would be on a monthly basis, and what the cost for an addressable converter would be, and as you can see, for a handheld, 6 cents.
Okay, let's keep it right here with this graphic. Why are the remote controls, the handheld, so inexpensive now?
Well, again, when you go through the calculations that are mandated by the Cable Act of 1992 and you follow the formulas and the forms, you're only allowed to charge the way the forms come out, and they dictate pretty much what your charges are going to be. I mean, you look at all the equipment, you figure out how old it is, how long it's been in service, and how long it's been amortized, and that's what you come up with. And that'll vary with every cable system in the country.
So each one's unique based on their real cost for the equipment?
Everybody has their own cost structures.
Now, subscribers used to be charged for each additional outlet, but that's not happening anymore either, is it?
That's correct. Under the Cable Act of 1992, effective September 1st, we're no longer allowed to charge a monthly fee for additional outlets. We are allowed to charge for the equipment that goes on those additional outlets.
Okay, now, is there a limit to the number of additional outlets someone can have in their home?
Well, individuals can have additional outlets, but they need to know that there will be a charge, an installation charge for each additional outlet, and there will be an equipment charge for each additional outlet that requires equipment.
And the rates we discussed earlier are frozen until November 15th. Are there plans to raise rates at that time or after that?
There are no plans that I am aware of at this point to raise rates on November 15th. We'll have to look at things in 1994 and decide at that point whether rates need to go up or not.
Now, obviously, we've seen the new bills. We've talked a lot in this show about what's happening. A major change, the biggest change since you said the divestiture of AT&T years ago. If people are dissatisfied with changes or don't like the bill, what should they do? Who should they write to? Who should they call?
Well, we're the cable operator in the area, and we're very well aware of that, and we take the responsibility of satisfying our customers. So we would like every opportunity to try to satisfy the customer. In the event that the customer is unhappy with the results of the Cable Act of 1992, the things that we've had to implement here today, then they would need to write to the Federal Communications Commission. Actually, there'll be a form available after September 1st that no doubt will be mailed to their home by someone, or they can pick up probably at the post office. I'm not sure exactly where they'll be available. And they can write to the Federal Communications Commission in Washington, D.C.
Okay, now sometimes you and I get calls in our customer service department about, well, we carry certain channels, especially some local channels that some people might feel are inconsequential or don't provide the kind of programming they want. Why is this done?
Well, I think you're referring to the must-carry channels. Under the, again, the Cable Act of 1992, we were mandated to carry certain channels that we may not have carried before. An example of that would be Channel 38, which we recently added to the system. An upcoming example will be Channel 50, Home Shopping Network, which will be added to the system on or around the 1st of October. So again, it's something that we're required to do under the Cable Act of 1992. And in some cable systems in the country, it could cause them to have to eliminate some channels in order to comply with the Federal Act.
So you could have to maybe drop a popular cable channel to add a local home shopping channel or a local low-power channel.
Exactly. Something that may not be as popular to the overall customer base as something that we have to put on.
Now, people will often be channel hopping and see Channel 12 is blacked out right now because it's a Sarasota counterpart to Channel 10. Is this going to continue?
This will continue.
Why is that?
Well, the reason for it is, again, first of all, the local ABC station requested non-duplication protection against the duplicate ABC that we carried from Sarasota. And as part of the federal communications rules, they have that right. And as a result, since July 27th, we have been blanking that channel out about 60% of the time.
And you can see on the screen the retransmission consent has been requested by 4 of the local broadcasters in this market.
Okay, well, that's something different now than non-duplication protection. Again, under the Cable Act of 1992, cable operators, or broadcasters rather, had to make a choice on June 17th of this year, either to require must-carry on the system or to give up their must-carry rights and elect retransmission consent. 4 stations elected retransmission consent. They were the ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox affiliates. And as a result, they gave up their must-carry status, and they're negotiating with the individual cable systems for compensation to be carried. And in the event that we can't reach an agreement on compensation, and they do not allow us to continue to carry their service after October 5th of this year, we would then be forced to take them off the system. Again, I want to make it clear that that's not something Vision Cable wants to do. That's not something Vision Cable would be doing by their choosing, but if the broadcaster does not allow us or give us permission to carry their signal after October 5th, we have no choice under the law but to take them off the cable system.
So we would be required by law after October 5th to drop them if an agreement's not reached between the two parties.
That's correct. Now, I hope that that doesn't happen. I don't think that is in the best interest of the consumer, and we're doing all that we can to see to it that that doesn't happen. But the law states that that is what must happen if there's not an agreement by October 5th.
And right now, contractual negotiations are going on between the four parties, correct?
That's about all I can tell you, is that they are going on. You will see some verbiage in your bill next month that talks to the subject, which will give you a little bit of an explanation about what we're doing with regards to retransmission consent.
Okay, and there are several new channels on the system: Country Music Television, the Science Fiction Channel, the Learning Channel, and the Cartoon Network.
Yes.
Will subscribers be charged for those in the future?
Well, let me talk a little bit about that, because we have been previewing those services since April, and there will be a charge for those in the future. I'm not sure exactly when, and I'm not sure exactly what the charge will be. But again, that will be handled on a la carte basis or as a preferred package.
And you can see on the screen you'll be notified 30 days in advance of the end of the free preview for those four particular channels. When that comes up, but right now we don't know when that's going to happen.
That's
Is
correct.
that correct?
That's correct. But the consumer will have the opportunity again to buy these on an individual basis or in a package. And this way we give the consumer more choice, and we keep the cable service charges from going up, because these particular channels are not a part of the cable service charge, nor are the superstation channels that we took out and put into their own package. Consumers need to understand that, yes, they're not in that basic service package, they're not in that cable service package, but neither is the charges for those channels. So when they make that decision down the road as to whether they want that package or not, that's when they make the decision to spend the money.
Now, you mentioned the superstations. You can see the package now, and on an a la carte basis, you can get all four of them for 70 cents, or you can take them individually for 25 cents a piece, and that's what you were alluding to.
That's what I was alluding to, correct.
And so basically we are now giving people more of a choice as to what level of service they would like to have, what they would like to have in their home, and allowing them a reasonable charge to purchase everything, or a little less of a charge if they don't wish to have those four channels on their system, and in the future if they don't wish to have the four new channels that we're adding, so that the basic subscriber who wants to keep their level at a certain level doesn't have to subsidize new channels that other people wish to have. Is that correct?
That's correct. You'll see that trend in the future when additional channels are added to the cable system. They'll no doubt be added on an a la carte basis or included in a package price, and the customer can decide at that point whether they want them. Not unlike going to a restaurant and selecting a la carte off the menu what you want. Same thing. But in the past, consumers have not had as much choice as they will have in the future.
Okay. What we're going to do right now is we'll take one more time out, and we'll be back to wrap up our show on the 1992 Cable Act. Keep it right here.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Vision Cable's all-star lineup of government programs: the Pinellas County Commission meetings, the Clearwater City Commission meetings, and the Pinellas Park City Council. And now it's time to meet your elected officials with Know Your Local Government, Meet Your County Commissioner, Meet Your Mayor, Stateside, Watchdog Report, and Mike Bilirakis Report. And don't forget Vision's primary and general election coverage, candidate forums, and debate. Take your seat and tune into Channel 9. The show's about to start.
This vehicle can take you as far as your ability and imagination will allow, but only if you don't bail out. Brought to you by the United States Air Force.
Welcome back to our show, Explaining the Cable Act of 1992. I'm Brian Unks, Director of Public Affairs and Programming for Vision Cable, and I'm joined by Jim Waldo, the Vice President and General Manager of Vision Cable of Pinellas. Jim, before we went to the break, we talked about some of the new channels that are on a free preview right now. Country Music Television is one of them. It's a part-time channel. Will it ever become a full-time service?
I wouldn't want to say that it would never become full-time. There are no immediate plans to expand it to 24 hours, but we'll be looking at that in the future.
Okay, now earlier in the show we talked about the requirement to break everything out on the bill and itemize it. We've done that. Let's go through that one more time and explain from the top what our subscribers will be seeing on their bills come September.
Okay, well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go through the insert that the customers will see in their bill in the month of September. And this insert is the rate changes that are effective September 1st. The first thing they'll see is the basic service, the old rate. There was no charge for basic service. There was 20 channels under the rate changes effective September 1st. And as a result of the calculations and the benchmark formulas that we had to follow under the Cable Act, we will now have to charge on a per-channel basis for basic service. And that charge will be $6.56 for 17 channels of service. And I'll explain in a minute why it went from 20 channels to 17 channels. Cable service was 29 channels of service for $16.95. Additional sets were $3.50. After September 1st, there'll be 28 channels of cable service for $10.81, and there'll be no additional set charge. Now, the reason why it went from 20 channels to 17 channels on basic service is because we pulled out the 3 superstations and put them into their own package. We also pulled out the cost of those 3 superstations, so the consumer is not paying for those stations. The reason why it went from 29 channels to 28 channels in cable service is because we pulled out TNT, and we put that in the superstation package. So the customer paying for cable service is not paying for TNT. Now, if a customer chooses to buy the superstation package, or any individual, the package price would be 70 cents for all 4 channels. Individual price for each channel is 25 cents. So as you can see, the customer has a choice. They don't have to pay for these channels if they don't want to. Again, they're not included in the basic service or the cable service charges. They are separate charges, and it's up to the customer to choose whether they want them. The equipment rates were calculated again using the formulas that the FCC provided. The basic cable converter box, the basic box as we call it, the one that doesn't require premium channels, pay-per-view, will be 47 cents a month. The addressable converter, if you have a premium channel or you require or you want to use pay-per-view, that particular box will be 73 cents a month. And if you want a remote control handheld unit, that's 6 cents a month. The installation rates were again calculated using the FCC's formulas and forms, and an aerial installation will cost $44.11. That's for a house that has no cable in it now. Underground installation, that's if we install it underground to your home and there's no cable in the home now, is $52.27. Again, these rates are a result of the calculations of the Cable Act of 1992. A reconnect charge, that's where there's cable already existing in the home, is $23.24. Each additional set will be installed at the time of the original installation for $18.09. If we're required to come out and install an additional outlet separate of any other installation, that will be a separate trip charge of $22.67. The reconnect on an account that is in default is $9.16. A trip charge of $13.74. An example of where we would use a trip charge is if we're required to come out and hook someone's VCR up. And if you have an addressable box in your home and you decide that you want to upgrade to a premium channel, there would be a nominal fee of $2 to do that, because we can do that electronically from the office. And there's an hourly service fee that these other rates are calculated off of. That's also a part of the Cable Act of 1992 calculation of $27.47. All rates are subject to applicable franchise fees and taxes. Premium channel rates remain the same. We have not increased our premium channel rates, and all rates will include applicable taxes.
Okay, and this is an insert that everyone will see in their bill to help further explain complicated new
That's
rules.
correct. If I could, I'd like to spend maybe a minute on the franchise fee, because that's something that customers have never seen on their bill before. It's always been a part of their cable service rate that they paid each month. Well, in doing the calculations and following the forms required of the Cable Act of 1992, you have to pull out the franchise fee cost in calculating the cost per channel that you're allowed to charge, and then you are required to add that franchise fee back in at the end of the bill, and that's a calculation of whatever percentage of franchise fees we pay to the municipalities that we serve, and that's calculated depending on where you live, what area you live in. It will vary. But that has always been a part of your cable service bill before. It's been pulled out of that as a result of the calculation and gets added back in at the bottom, primarily because the FCC wants you to see what it is you're paying for. So we've had to itemize that.
So that'll be on everyone's bill. There'll be a lot more itemized things on their bill than what they're used to when they get them in September.
That's correct. And then under that franchise fee, they'll see the tax that they pay, the 7% sales tax that's paid.
Okay. We've pretty much covered everything, but any final thoughts on this Cable Act of 1992?
Well, I would ask that our customers bear with us. Again, as we said in the beginning of this talk, what's happening here is the equivalent of what happened in the AT&T breakup back in 1984. 57 million cable subscribers in the United States, their bills and rates will be affected by this regulation that takes effect September 1st. We have to work through it as well. We're understanding the bill, the 550 pages, so bear with us. Again, some customers will see a significant decrease on their bill, and others will see a nominal increase.
Okay, Jim, thanks for joining us and explaining to our subscribers what this was all about. And thank you for joining us. I hope this answered a lot of your questions. But if you need more information, we'd be happy to speak with you in person. Just give us a call at our customer service number of 797-9900. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care, everyone.
At Vision Cable, we're looking our best for you.
Pensacola, the area that you represent, and also how you began to get involved with the legislature.
Well, as you know, because you've been over there visiting us a couple of times, Pensacola is thought of sometimes as a forgotten place in Florida. We're a long ways away from almost everywhere else in Florida, and a lot of people, surprisingly enough, don't know where Pensacola is, hasn't been there. I've been in Pensacola since 1974, been in the legislature for the last 5 years, and had an opportunity to run back in 1988 for the House after having a background in business and banking and real estate and other commercial interests such as that.
Well, of course, we are colleagues in the fact that we both came in 19...